Tell them about the time we faced them.
All right. Well, as I remember.
At Avenger headquarters.
Because united, the Avengers are strong.
Welcome to the Marvel Evolution Show with myself, Andy Stead.
And I'm Jarian Gibson.
And I'm Alex Stroud.
How are we, chaps? Okay?
Doing pretty well.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, Jarian, how are you?
Things are hectic, but this is a nice break in between some stuff I'm trying to get done. So,
And there you go. And that's what hobbies should be, isn't it? That's exactly what they should be. They should be, because this is a hobby. You know, this is a hobby for us. And that's exactly what they should be. There should be a nice break in between things that we have to get done, things that we enjoy doing. And that's why we're here. We enjoy doing this. We've got a lot to talk about today, actually. And do you know what? It's funny. I was just thinking about this. About 3 months ago, I remember saying to you guys, do you fancy doing a reaction video? Because I said about how naff I find reaction videos. Like, I just don't like them. It's just, especially like trailer reaction videos. It's like, you know, we've all seen it. And I said about doing one, didn't I? And I said about doing one for Black Panther 2 trailer, or the Wakanda Forever trailer. And we was umming and ahhing about it. And then before we've even had a chance to think about whether we wanted to do it, boom, there it is, hits today. So we're going to be talking about that. We've got the news of the week to talk about. There's obviously the big news in there about Deadpool 3 and Hugh Jackman's involvement, etc. Lots of other pieces of news. And then we've got She-Hulk episode 7 to talk about as well. Some little developments in that and another fun episode. So we'll skip over any pleasantries. We're all good. Let's get cracking, shall we? Black Panther 2 or Wakanda Forever trailer drops this morning or today, whatever time of day it was for you. It hit me by a little bit of surprise. I wasn't expecting to see it, to be totally honest. The first I realised that it was happening was when there was a pending post on the group from Roxy sharing a trailer, and I was like, "Oh, okay, here's a trailer." And I didn't even allow it first. I just watched it first, even though I knew what it was. So it was a bit of a surprise, but it was a great trailer. I thought another really good trailer, and started beautifully with that, you know, that lovely sort of funeral scene. And it's obviously a big celebration of T'Challa's life, but also Chadwick Boseman's life. And just sort of like continued that theme nicely from the first trailer that we saw.
Yeah. I personally think that there were a few really nice visuals in this trailer. I think one of the best visuals has to be the shot of the suit. That costume looks absolutely amazing in this trailer. I thought that was one of the best visuals I saw, and that was a great way to like close out the trailer too, to just kind of like leave us with that, you know, Shuri in that costume.
Yeah, and you say that as well, Shuri in that costume, because although it didn't tell you that it was Shuri, it was definitely Shuri.
Definitely.
yeah, it's pretty much confirmed now. It's her. Yeah.
Yeah. But Namor looked awesome in that
Yes.
trailer. And in Baku's little scene where he's telling the story. Oh man, that's awesome. That's
I have a theory based on that too. First of all, I love the look of Namor. I love the whole thing. I'm pumped now even more. I was already pumped for Tenoch Huerta already in this role, but I'm pumped even more to see the flying wings, everything. But yeah, speaking of that story that M'Baku told, it almost sounds like Talokan, who's the Atlanteans, possibly was a water tribe, maybe, or another tribe of Wakanda in the past, possibly, in that they could have had some kind of civil war or some kind of falling out, and they kind of fell off and went into the water. Because if you listen to the story that M'Baku's telling, plus what the Queen is saying as well from the trailer, it almost seems like that they were some kind of, either they had some kind of alliance, or they were a tribe that broke off on their own. And possibly that T'Challa and T'Chaka were keeping them at bay, keeping the peace. And through the snap, and then with T'Challa's passing, it sounds like they're coming for Wakanda, possibly, to see that. Because, you know, the whole thing with the water and the rig too as well, it's like they might have vibranium resources also, possibly. And maybe they're coming for the rest, who knows? But it definitely seems like there's some kind of connection that we don't know about yet from that storytelling.
Yeah, I definitely. Oh, sorry, Alex, go for it.
I was just gonna say that's interesting. That's like the forgotten tribe is almost what that kind of seems like. And it could very well be one of those things where it's like, hey, they could be coming for the throne because they feel like they've got entitlement to the throne now, and now they want to challenge for the throne of Wakanda. You
Mm.
know?
Yeah, that's kind of the vibes that I've had for a little while about that. That the that Namor and his people were part of Wakanda, and they were kind of maybe cast out by some previous Black Panther, and then obviously without, you know, with the disturbance with T'Chaka being killed prematurely, and then obviously T'Challa dying prematurely, that's kind of given them an opening to attack. You know, it's typical, isn't it, of a nation that wants to attack another nation. They'll attack when they're at their weakest, you know, and if they've
Yeah.
lost their leader, that's when they're at their weakest. So it does kind of make sense. Although I do have a feeling that there's going to be some sort of alliance between them. I don't think it's going to be a constant. Well, it probably will be a constant battle. You know, they don't like us, we don't like them, but we're going to come together to fight a more common enemy. And I guess that's where the potential of Doom comes in. You know, we've said it, wow, haven't we?
It almost feels like Doom was pulling the strings here, and that we'll find out because I believe it was rumored that Blake Bell is playing Lucia Van Barros, who is tied to Lafiera and all that kind of stuff. So maybe that she's in part of that, pulling some strings, causing the conflict, and then we possibly get him in a closing credits, him being teased to set up something in the future. But because if you listen to what Tenoch Huerta said, he's not a villain; he's more of an anti-hero in this. And we know that Namor from the comics, he's an Avenger. He's, you know, been involved in other groups as well. So there's no way they're going to make him a full-on villain.
Yeah.
So yeah, for some reason we're not showing to the group, but everywhere else today. That's interesting.
Okay. I'll pop a little comment on the group and just say if anybody wants to watch the head over to the page.
Yeah,
That might
so
be
it looks like it. Yeah, I know there's been some Facebook issues lately with the platform. So
okay. Well, yeah. So and just going back to Alex's observation there about the Black Panther at the end. Yeah, I mean, it did kind of make me smile a little bit because it was basically them saying, "Yeah, it's Shuri," without them saying, "Here, look, it's Shuri."
yeah, I wonder if we're gonna get like a training montage of her because she wasn't that skilled fighter last time we saw her.
I don't know. I don't think we'll get a great deal of her as Black Panther. I think that will come in right at the end. I think you know, like almost like she's just wearing the suit because she can, like because it's there almost, like not because she's made one for herself. Not because she is going to take over as Black Panther. I don't think that's what that's going to be. But you know what I mean? I don't think we'll get much Black Panther in this.
I think it'll be one of those things where she'll have like kind of like probably some internal struggles about being Black Panther. And maybe it'll be one of those things where like, you know, maybe she never wants to actually be the Black Panther. And then at the end of the movie, maybe she puts on a suit and she's like, all right, you know, type of thing. Like,
yeah, I think that might be it. But I think it might even still be like she puts on a suit for a purpose and then kind of almost instantly after that says, but I'm not going to be the Black Panther. And then you know, we'll get
M'Baku.
or anybody who
Like, no, I'm saying like she hands it to M'Baku possibly. Like she's not ready to be this. Maybe the mantle goes to M'Baku. Maybe he becomes the king of Wakanda at the end.
yeah.
You know, I do have a feeling too that we could possibly see multiple people wearing suits in this film during a fight. I almost wonder too that we will get some training for Shuri from Anika, who they're adding, who's known in the I think it's Anika, but either way, the character that they added, Michaela Coel, her character, I believe in the comics, she also trains Dora Milaje. So I wonder if we get some kind of training in that sense for Shuri as well.
Yeah, potentially. I'll tell you what, I just had a thought about. You know, in Iron Man 3, it is in Iron Man 3, isn't it? Where he's got the suit that he pings off with his, you know, he sort of throws it around with his hands gestures.
Yeah.
He throws the pieces around with his hands gestures, and then it attaches to like other people and other things. Like it attaches to villains to like shoot them off into the sky, or it attaches to Pepper to protect her, or back to him again when he calls it back to him. I wonder whether there's some sort of, there could be, because what you just said there, Jared, about multiple Black Panthers, I wonder whether because it's a nanotech, isn't it?
Yep.
Is what it is. And I wonder whether it could almost like jump, almost like a symbiote in a way, from different people at different times. So maybe you've got Shuri, Okoye, and Baku, all these different Nakia, all these different people that could potentially be a Black Panther. And the suit just kind of has got its own like intuitiveness. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a right field guess, I guess, but a left field guess. But could happen.
That's pretty cool because last time we saw the studio was built into like a necklace, and you could just all come out from there. So they can throw a piece of it and then transfer it while they're fighting, kind of like that scene in Captain America: Civil War with Bucky and Cap with the shield. As they're fighting Namor, they can toss it back and forth, and they can have the suit on to protect them and also fight and so forth. So that'll be interesting as well.
Yeah, that'd be cool, wouldn't it? And it'd be a nice way of saying, it'd almost be a nice way of saying, actually, that none of us can take over from T'Challa. Like none of us are good enough. That's not what it is. But none of us are right to take over from T'Challa. Nobody can replace T'Challa as Black Panther. We all can. We can all help. We can all chip in. It's about Wakanda. It's about all of it. But it's not about one person.
Mm-hmm.
Just
I think that's a good point. I am curious to see. Have they said anything about like the heart-shaped herb at all?
No, but it'd be interesting to see if she does get that, and when she goes to the ancestral plane, who does she see? Because it's not going to be Chadwick. It's not going to be T'Challa. Are they going to bring T'Chaka back? Is it going to be someone like Killmonger possibly? Who's going to be that surrogate when she goes to the ancestral plane?
Yeah. That'd be interesting to see about the heart-shaped herb, whether that becomes even a thing, or whether they managed to build some sort of powers into the suit. Because do you remember the suit had that power of
Absorption?
Yeah, what's it called? It's a little bit like the kinetic energy, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And I think when she lands, you see a little bit of that coming back up. There's that ground reaction force, isn't there? And you see the purple coming back up her legs.
See, I almost feel like she'll be leaning more towards the tech and probably won't have the herb, to be honest. And that'll be like her transition as Black Panther. She'll be one of those that'll, just hold the mantle for a bit until somebody steps up. But
possibly like AI, like Tony used as countermeasures when he was fighting Cap, sort of like that. Maybe something that Riri helps her develop, possibly. Because we saw a good shot of Riri's suit as well in the trailer, to where we saw her flying off. We saw the kind of similar facial AI, or not AI, but HUD, like Tony has in his suits, and same thing with Rhodey. So that was pretty cool, and I'm excited to see how they bring her aboard with the team as well.
Yeah, that was cool. There was that throwback there to Tony and to Rhodey as well. The heads up display, that was really cool. I like that. She was really excited, weren't she, in that scene? Yeah, it's working. I've not crashed yet. Yeah.
So we potentially have another artifact as well. Remember, we keep saying there's artifacts with the bangle, the 10 rings, and there's some rumors that this next phase is going to be artifacts. Mm-hmm. Possibly the crown that we see Namor wearing could possibly be the serpent crown. That could possibly be teased, and that was something that before they went down to the ocean, when they were on the surface, something they had. They could, basically serpent men, it's elder god tied, power of the elder god. So I wonder if Namor has that, and that's could possibly corrupting him or something else there, or, who knows, but it looks like we possibly have another artifact in Wakanda Forever.
Oh, these artifacts.
Sometimes you just don't need them. I can't imagine. Do we need that in this story? Like,
it depends how they do it. We'll see, and maybe back to that Doom time. Maybe he's after some certain artifacts as well to become, God Doom, Emperor Doom. So who knows?
I'm just curious to see how they all connect if they choose to do that, because it kind of seems like there might have been talk or something like that of potentially all these different artifacts connecting. So,
Ryan Coogler also talked about bringing Namor to life in the MCU. He says, I think with making these types of movies, you got to lean into the weird stuff or risk what makes it fun. He's got really unique features and things that don't necessarily go together. He can breathe underwater. Obviously, he's got little wings on his ankles. He's got pointy ears and walks around in his underwear. It's all fun, man.
I thought he looks fantastic. I thought, no,
Yeah.
really, really good.
Mhm.
I really liked how he looks. And do you know what as well? What I quite liked, and I mean, I don't know whether I wasn't seeing things correctly, but and this is absolutely no disrespect to Tenoch Huerta, is that he didn't look like ridiculously like jacked and ripped. He just looked like a sort of fairly normal guy, which I quite liked. You know, he sort of just not forcing that narrative again. You know,
Yeah.
Mhm.
of that superhero shape. Just something I observed. What was the other thing? Just going back to what I was saying right at the top of this sort of segment here about the trailer, was about the funeral scene that looks like it is at the beginning. Obviously, they've got a tradition of celebration at a funeral, and there was lots of dancing and lots of white. There wasn't much black or anything like that. So I'm really really looking forward to seeing that scene. I think that would be a really powerful scene actually for lots of reasons, and obviously a really nice way to honor T'Challa and also Chadwick Boseman. I was talking to my family today. We were saying about how they will deal with Chadwick's death within this, and how they would deal with T'Challa's death. And I think we'll probably arrive at the movie with him already dead.
Yeah.
I hope we do. I hope they don't give us some rubbish, cheap sort of death. I think that would be awful. I'd much rather him just come in, and we all know that Chadwick Boseman's passed away, and we all know that T'Challa, because of that, is dead. So then we just hit the funeral scene straight away, get that kind of emotional element in early doors, and I think that would be really interesting. And like I say, we was talking about it as a family today, and I was harping back to don't shoot me down, but Glee with Corey Monteith, because obviously the circumstances around his death were slightly different to around Chadwick Boseman's death, but within that show they didn't reference how he died. They just hit the episode and was like, he's dead, and everyone was just mourning for the character, but obviously also for the actor as well. So I hope we get something like that, because it was actually quite tastefully done, I thought, in Glee, and hopefully it could be represented here as well. Hi Roxy, how you doing?
Yeah, I don't even think we need a reason or explanation. Just go right into the funeral scene. Just don't even explain it, and then kind of get right into the story while still trying to tribute and honor him without having to go into details.
Yeah, for sure.
Speaking of the death, I'm gonna kind of cover the Wakanda Forever news right now since we're talking about it. That's cool.
Yeah.
Kevin Feige did recently address on recasting T'Challa. So it was interesting. He went on to say it just felt like it was too much. It was much too soon to recast. Stan Lee's always said that Marvel represents the world outside your window, and we had talked about how, as extraordinary and fantastical as our characters and stories are, there's a relatable and human element to everything we do. The world is still processing the loss of Chad, and Ryan poured that into the story. The conversations were entirely about, yes, what do we do next? And how could the legacy of Chadwick and what we had done to help Wakanda and the Black Panther become these incredible, aspirational, iconic ideas continue? That's what it's all about. So it almost sounds like they're backtracking on not recasting him, and that at some point they may recast T'Challa.
Yeah, I think they will, and we've spoken about this at length on the group and with different members, and I've got two. There was a question asked today, I can't remember, but somebody said about, I wish it was someone different as Black Panther. Who do you think it should have been? And I was like, unless they were going to recast, I'm not bothered who it was.
Yep.
It doesn't really matter whether it was Shuri or whether it was M'Baku or whether it was Akia or Okoye. If it wasn't going to be T'Challa again, it could have been anybody, because I do believe that they will bring T'Challa back somehow, whether that's most likely through the multiverse. I'd quite like to see? I'd quite like to see a T'Challa that comes from the multiverse that has lost Shuri, that has lost everybody else. He's
Yes.
lost everybody. They've lost him. He's lost everybody else, and they kind of come together and say, "Well, look, I've lost everybody. I've lost Wakanda.
Mhm.
You know, maybe his universe gets
Incursion.
incursion, yeah, and he's lost his entire family, and this family have lost their T'Challa. So it's almost like an adoption. They adopt each other.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's almost like what we saw with Black Widow in What If. How she
Yes.
lost everyone in her world, and when they brought her back, she was in the world that lost her.
Do you know what? I was sitting there for 1 minute thinking, I've just come up with this ingenious storyline, and obviously that's where I've got it from.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, they did have that one episode of What If where he was basically Star-Lord and him switch places, you know, too. Which is also kind of like a sort of similar situation there, I
Yep.
guess. You know.
Yeah.
Roxy goes on to say, I think they will honor him, which they definitely will. Other news about Wakanda Forever. Tenoch Huerta confirms Namor is a mutant in the MCU. Huerta confirmed that Atlantis will now be called, we know that before, Talokan, and they'll be coming to the surface thanks to T'Challa's decision to reveal the truth of Wakanda to the world at the end of the first movie. So it almost sounds like maybe they had an agreement to not, to remain secret, and that's part of it. He said the decision puts Talokan in jeopardy, and they have to take action to protect themselves. Ryan Coogler also pitched Namor post credits for the first movie, so we might have gotten Namor in the first post credits of the movie. Basically, go ahead.
1 second, because I saw that article that you're talking about where Tenoch Huerta says that he's a mutant, and I read that article and I didn't see anywhere in there where he actually said, yes, I'm a mutant. I just saw it in the heading, and in the text I didn't read anywhere where he actually said I'm mutant. I'm not saying he's not a mutant, I'm just saying I didn't read anywhere that he'd actually said, yes, I'm a mutant. I just read lots of other quotes instead, and there was no actual quote of him saying I'm a mutant. And I was like, okay, so the headline said this, but the actual article, nothing in the article said that he'd actually said it. Like, they didn't quote him saying it. So I was like, okay, I'm not sure whether to or not.
Yeah, I've seen it other places too, so I need to double check on that one as well. But it does sound like he will be a mutant in the MCU.
Yeah, I dare say.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
So basically, what they're going to have is that Kevin Feige said Ryan had a pitch for a tag at the end of Black Panther. The camera would push through the palace in Wakanda, and then we see the set of footprints leading up to the throne. So we almost got him there. Also, Lupita Nyong, who is basically Nakia in the film, reveals that Wakanda Forever cast visited Chadwick's grave with his family before filming. To have a moment to physically go and pay our respects and to be with members of his family gave me an emotional allowance to step back into that world. So,
yeah, nice. I bet that was quite powerful.
Yeah, it's pretty cool of them to do that. And just if you read the articles that have been out since, of all the characters from it, how they've paid respects, how this is a tribute, and the things they've said, it's they really circled the wagons together and are making sure this is done properly.
Yeah, and just going back to that recast and not recast, I think there was I think Mike might have been the one that said it actually, and he said there's plenty of time to tell other T'Challa stories, but there's no more time to tell another Chadwick story. So like,
Exactly.
if they're going to honor Chadwick Boseman, they have to do it now in this movie. Otherwise, they can't really do it. They can't do this. They couldn't have recast T'Challa now and then honor Chadwick in another movie. It wouldn't have made sense. So it's either now or they don't do it, and they're not going to not do it. So it's now.
Yep. Tenoch Huerta also talked about Namor was inspired by the culture and history of Mesoamerica. You can take Atlantis from the Greek myth, or you can adapt from a real culture. Rather than the ruler of Atlantis on screen, he's a ruler of Talokan. So there you go. Roxy here from the chat says the emotions are going to be flying through this movie. Rip to Chadwick, always and forever, King T'Challa. Well said. 100% agree. Runtime is reportedly 2 hours and 41 minutes, which would be the longest non-Avengers film, beating Eternals by 4 minutes. And following some of the scoopers that I follow, it sounded like it was going to be even longer in earlier cuts, but it looks like they cut it down to 2 hours and 41 minutes.
And it's actually that's actually second behind Endgame.
Yep.
That's the second longest MCU movie behind Endgame. So it's not just the longest non-Avengers movie. It's the second longest movie we've had in the MCU. It's longer than Infinity War.
Wow.
And then as far as number predictions, it's predicted to gross 423.5 million at the domestic box office. That's now. I'm just like, don't underestimate the cultures coming out to see this, especially, look at the first one we did, and now you're adding Tenoch Huerta and a whole nother doing audience. I think this is kind of low. But it said this will be a 277 million drop, almost 40% from the original film. And the 8th highest grossing film behind Captain Marvel. The projections also included 278.5 million from video on demand, blah blah blah, that kind of stuff. Yada yada yada. So we'll see. Like I said, I think that this movie is going to probably do better than the original film, almost, especially with what's going on around it. You're adding Tenoch Huerta, you're adding a whole other demographic to this viewing. Just seeing if you watch any of the Spanish videos with him and looking out there's a whole other demographic that they're excited about this movie.
Yeah,
So-
I think you're right. I think it will gross more than the original movie, just because, like I say, of everything that comes with it.
Yeah, and they've also been generating some excitement. I mean, we just saw the Dora Milaje in Falcon and the Winter Soldier too. Yeah, so like we've been getting almost like slowly kind of fed a little bit more and more about them building up to this movie. So
Any other thoughts on Wakanda Forever or the trailer, or just anything else before we go more into the news?
No, I think it will be a fitting way to finish Phase 4, and I think it will be a nice way, if they do bring in Doom, to set up what's going to happen over the next few years.
mm-hmm.
That's it. That's my final words.
I agree. I'm looking forward to it. I showed my wife the trailer today, and she was all excited. She goes, "When does this come out?" I'm like, "It's a Friday." She goes, "So the kids can go to my mom's house?" I'm like, "Well, we can go when the kids are in school." Like we've done before, those Friday releases will go like 11 o'clock showing in the morning. So yeah.
I'm going to attempt to go to the London premiere. Not go and watch the movie. Obviously, I'm not that important, but attempt to go to the premiere to see, the red carpet premiere. And I've got my. Let's see if I can get it without pulling. I've got my classic Namor.
Nice.
Funko.
I love that one.
Yeah, the 80 years one. So I'm going to try and see if I can get Tenoch Huerta to sign that Funko. That'd be really cool if I could do that. That'd be my first piece of signed Marvel merch. So that's the idea. Whether that happens or not is another matter. But that's the plan.
I hope you get it. That'd be pretty awesome to have that. That's with his introduction to the MCU. So
Yeah, that would be pretty cool. So that's the plan. I think it's the 6th. I think they've got the London premiere on the 6th. I believe. But yeah, me and my son bought. He bought a. I think it was a Black Panther comic, and he wants to see it, but it's got Okoye on the front of it, so he wants to see if he can get Danny Guerrero.
yeah.
If you want to see if you can get her to sign it. I was like, cool, let's do it. Let's see how we go. So
From the chat, Roxy, my family doesn't like Marvel movie except Black Panther. We rent private screen. That's pretty cool,
Mm.
And you can have people. Those private screens aren't too expensive either. So I've seen those at my movie theater also. If you get I think like 10 or 20 people, pretty much you're covering the cost of it, and they all chip in. So that's pretty cool. So hopefully they all enjoy Roxy.
yeah, for sure. So should we move on to the sort of news of the week before we do She-Hulk?
Yep. So we know that Werewolf by Night is releasing here in the next few days. So there's been tons of news Werewolf by Night. So executive producer Brian Gay is teasing more MCU monsters. I think of very cool things about the special. It's just peeling back the corner of monsters in the MCU. So there's not just monsters that are part of Werewolf by Night, but ones that were up on the wall. There is some of the artwork as well. With all this lens, it's the idea for centuries there have been monsters within the world of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and they've been tracked or hunted or kept at bay by these hunters. And I think, we don't know exactly where they'll pop up next. That is the idea that with this wide swath of different species and types, they're going to pop up again. You're going to see these guys in different ways, of course. So pretty much they're teasing Legion of Monsters is what some of this news is starting to say, which, we talked about before. Is probably the next logical piece of this.
Mm-hmm. Which I think it's really interesting. I know we talked about like them potentially doing like a Swamp Thing a Swamp Thing.
Man Thing.
Sorry.
Different universe.
Yeah, different universe. Different universe, my bad. But potentially doing like a Man Thing project, and we see him in Werewolf by Night, and that's really interesting. And I was very concerned that would be just like a kind of like an Easter egg, almost like appearance, that would be one of those that we would see him briefly and then probably not see him again. But it sounds like that they're going to expand on this, and they could do so many other, different monster characters if they chose to do so.
Yeah, the rumor is next year's Halloween special will be Man Thing, was the early rumors. And I just wonder if we're gonna see Agatha be the surrogate for Jennifer Kale, or if they're gonna properly introduce Jennifer Kale as well into the MCU.
Just on those specials, Joan, is part of your news about the special thing? Well, I won't talk about it.
That's upcoming. Yep.
I won't talk about it. But yeah, I think that we didn't we mention maybe last week or the week before when we was talking about Werewolf by Night, about the TVA and about their involvement in it, and about these hunters, and the idea that they've got they're collecting them, or pruning them, or whatever, they're putting them somewhere. So could still be a theory.
Yep. You would think though, if they pruned any of them, we would see them in the void that we saw in Loki.
Yeah, void was a good place.
But yeah, true. Or at least some kind of Easter egg form or something along those lines. Excuse me. Michael Giacchino did talk about Blade rumors. You know what? Rumors are insanely inaccurate. I would say 99.9% of the time. The thing about the Marvel Cinematic Universe, everyone thinks that every single thing is going to be connected. Every single thing. And it doesn't mean that we're not connected, but I don't feel they need to blatantly say we were. So that's interesting. He also went on to talk about what drew him to Werewolf by Night, because typically he's a composer for Marvel. He's not a director. So this was his first time on the director's chair for MCU. Every other show has done that, and they've done it brilliantly. And I thought, you know what? When I was a kid, I would pull a comic off the shelf, and this particular Werewolf by Night issue had nothing to do with anything else in the MCU or Marvel Universe. What's wrong with that? That's okay. They can all live together, but we don't need to always show them together. Let's have a moment where we're dealing with this. One of the shows that was a huge influence for me growing up was The Twilight Zone. And what I loved about it was each one was its own thing, and each story was something that you had to think about for days afterwards. And I said, let's do that. Let's just worry about this. In the future, who knows? We'll see where the characters go. We'll see where we take them. But for now, let's just worry about this one thing right here. So,
and I think, going on to your second piece of news, or another piece of news about the special presentations, I think that's what that will allow those to do. A 45-minute short, I don't know, whatever you want to call it, special presentation, if that's what they're going to call them. I think that will allow that to happen, like an individual story. Just here's one story. Like, don't worry about it connected too much. Like, it's not like the guy said there. It's not that it's not connected, but it's not that it is either. Like, don't overthink it too much. Just roll with it almost.
It's almost like a solo story. It's still going to happen, but it's like in the background. Like, you could see that character pop up somewhere else, but you don't really have to know, like, what is Man Thing doing for, all this time? Like, he's just being Man Thing. Like, like
semantics.
Yeah, exactly. So
this was also thought to be TVMA, but received TV-14 rating. He went on to say, Michael Giacchino, we always assumed it would be TVMA, but I wasn't always involved with what was happening on that end in terms of ratings and all that. And so I'm not sure, but I'm sure you are absolutely right that the black and white did help us with a certain range, or keep us in with a certain range. He also talked about practical effects instead of VFX. Now, the other thing about this shot is all was done in camera. That it's not a visual effect, that shot, that was all done in camera, and it took months to design and figure out how we're going to do that. But Joe Farrell, our visual effects supervisor, was incredible in helping put that together. But that is almost exactly as a storyboard, that moment, exactly that. So wherever we could do practical in-camera effects, we did it. And I would say there are a ton of them in there. You just would never even know. I'm looking forward to that, right? I love the old horror movies where they have all practical effects, the costumes, all the work they had to do, none of the VFX stuff. So I'm looking forward to this one. I'm like actually pumped for it.
what's also kind of cool about that is you can hide like a lot of imperfections that happen in the actual like scenes when you're filming those with that. Like I think I read somewhere that like if there was blood and things like that, it would be hard to tell like certain, it wouldn't be as visually like bad, I guess, like appearing because it would be in black and white. So you wouldn't be as shocked when you saw it.
It's the red,
but-
it's the color. It's literally
Yep.
the color. It's not even
Ye-
the thing you see. It's the color.
Yeah. So I mean, if they did it for that reason, I mean, I really do think that will help with probably people accepting like a werewolf project because people would be very upset about seeing like a wild animal rip something apart on screen. Like
Unless
from London.
unless it's a wild animal ripping another wild animal apart on screen.
yeah, I mean, unless it's on the Discovery Channel or
Yeah,
something. But,
Yeah. But yeah. So going back to what you were saying, Jaron, about the practical effects, I think in a way they can almost look more they can almost look more real than special effects than CGI. Because with CGI, like half the time, you know it's not real. You know it's not possible. Like there's not a werewolf standing over there, for example. But when it's real, it's like, well, I know that thing is actually there. I know that werewolves aren't real, but that thing is actually there. That guy is wearing that outfit and that fur. I could touch that fur. Where when it's a CGI werewolf, you know you can't. You know it's just a guy with loads of dots all over it.
Mhm.
So do you know what I mean? And it's
Yep.
still so stupid because you know that the werewolf still isn't real. It doesn't matter whether it's a guy wearing a suit or whether it's CGI, but because it actually is real and you can physically touch it, it's tangible. It almost plays a trick with your mind that actually this is more real than if it looked more real with CGI.
Mhm.
It's mind blowing.
I think it's really interesting too. I think it was Nick Cage who, when he did Ghost Rider, actually painted his face like a skeleton too for like some of the scenes where he was doing like the Ghost Rider stuff. And I guess that was more of like it's not really like a prosthetic or anything like that, but it's like more of him getting into the role too.
Yeah, method acting
but-
type thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm sure that also helps with the method acting with like when you get into that, like rather than it just being a big CGI character, like you're actually in that, like,
Yeah, like and almost maybe for the other actors as well.
yeah, possibly.
Looking at you, that might help. I mean, I don't know, I'm not an actor, but I can imagine that would probably, it can't not help as long as it's not stupid. If it's
Mhm.
like a cartoon skull, it might look a bit rubbish, but their other actors are laughing at him. But yeah, if it's, I'll make you right, Alex.
Also, too, reportedly, it's Marvel's most violent content to date, according to early reactions. So, and then also, Feige goes on to say, "We are introducing a world that will ultimately become quite important to the future of the MCU, as well," is what Feige said about the project. The last thing on Werewolf by Night, we are going to get the Blood Gem introduction. It sounds like, so another artifact. Basically, it gives you powers. Psychic powers, speed, strength, dealability. Claw had it for a while, has gone after it. It ties, Elsa Bloodstone, even Deadpool as well. So it sounds like we're going to get another artifact in Werewolf by Night.
Cool.
But I wonder if that's, in the trailer, they show that one scene of like the red energy being released or whatever.
Mhm.
I wonder if that's the artifact itself.
It probably is.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
Blade news. Brad DeMaio is becoming a go-to guy from Marvel Studios. He was part of the writers' room for Moon Knight and the head writer and executive producer for X-Men 97. So now he's going to be one of the writers for Blade. Blade was supposed to start shooting soon, but that looks like it's going to change. They lost a director, Basim Tariq, of the film. They're supposed to start shooting next month, but this sounds like it's going to get delayed. Basically, their statement by Marvel was, due to continued shifts in our production schedule, Bassam is no longer moving forward as a director of Blade, but remain an executive producer on the film. Bassam did thank Marvel in his own statement. "It's been an honor working with the wonderful folks at Marvel. We were able to put together a killer cast and crew. Eager to see where the director takes the film." There's no reports, though, that he was fired and the film will be pushed back. Some reports are saying January, with the release date also being pushed back. Reportedly, also Mahershala Ali is not happy with the process. Issues with the script and lack of action sequences. Also, that Feige is spread thin. So reportedly, Marvel does have some big names in mind to replacement for director. But yeah, Brad DeMaio is going to rewrite the film from scratch. It sounds like as well. So it is reportedly that Rami will direct. I can't confirm this. I've seen a couple people saying that Deadline is reporting this, or someone else, I can't remember which, or Variety, was saying that Sam Raimi will direct. I cannot confirm that anywhere. But you know what? Why not have Michael Giacchino own the MonsterVerse and direct it as well? They could also look like Antoine Fuqua as an option. Jordan Peele as well, you know, with some of the stuff that he's done. He could also take over Blade, you know, with the way he does it with, you know, Nope and Get Out, and, you know, the one with the other film, I can't remember.
Us.
Yes, Us as well. He's done Twilight Zone as well. So why not, you know, maybe see if Jordan Peele do it, but who knows? But according to the Illuminati, the upcoming Marvel film may not be set in the current timeline, but rather explore the 1920s. It may feature Blade taking on European vampires before it starts exploring multiple time periods until it arrives in the modern MCU. So that's interesting. So something that's very fluid as far as director, as far as schedule, as far as, you know, just the whole process, production of it.
Do you know what I was thinking? I was just thinking a couple of things there. So, obviously a lot before the 1920s, but it was because Guy Ritchie done the Sherlock Holmes movies, didn't he? With Robert Downey Jr.
Yep, and Jude Law, yeah.
Yeah, and Jude Law. And I know I've said before in the past about how I'd quite like a sort of Guy Ritchie style, sort of Snatch style Captain Britain movie and MI13. And obviously I know that Blade has got his links with MI13. So I wonder whether they could do some sort of mix between that kind of, not necessarily like those Sherlock Holmes movies, but I'm just thinking, I was just thinking of the things, all the elements were kind of ticking over in my head, you know, like Guy Ritchie style, Blade being part of that sort of British contingent, and the MI13 thing, the fact that he'd directed a movie that was set, you know, that's set however long, many hundreds of years ago, or, you know, in old times or such. And I was just thinking, I wonder whether that sort of style could work.
Also, with, you know, with them talking about European vampires to start with.
That's my point. Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
he's from Britain, isn't he? Blade. He's actually British. He was born in England anyway, wasn't he?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I definitely let see Guy Ritchie take the helm with that too. So
I think I was just gonna say, I think it'd be a really cool thing that if they chose to do it, to kind of do like a transition through time periods with Blade, sort of like how they did WandaVision, but just with us just seeing him live through like different periods and go through different things. They could do that really quickly, but I mean, it would be almost kind of like the decades that we saw in WandaVision, kind of like, you know, flip through real quick.
Or something similar to X-Men Origins Wolverine, the beginning of that, how they kind of went through with him and Sabretooth and kind of different wars and that kind of stuff. We could see Blade go through different time periods like that.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, do you know what I really like to see? I'm really enjoying the different styles of projects that we're getting. You know, they've really diversified away from, you know, just hero has some internal struggle, hero overcomes said internal struggle and fights baddie. Do you know what I mean? They've and not only that, within the same, they're all at the same tone, weren't they? Like Phase 1 was great, but they were all kind of the same tone. And even Phase 2 was all the same. And to be honest, even Phase 3, it's all kind of the same tone. It did get a little bit different in Phase 3, but then Phase 4 has just been like all over the place. And I mean that in a good way in regards to the tones of each project. It's like they've been so totally different, haven't they? Like you've watched one thing and you're like, this is completely different from this thing. But whether you like it or not is another matter. That's not what I'm talking about here. But the tones of things have been totally different.
Mm-hmm. I also think that going back to the thing that we spoke about, I believe last week, like genres, like we've got all these subgenres and everything going on. So they have all these different, I guess, mediums, like all these different shows of which they can use to communicate different things. So if they want to really, you know, like we've got Daredevil coming up, like obviously Daredevil is probably going to be like a large focus on like on the ground heroes, like the people that are like fighting in the streets, like, you've got supernatural characters that are going to be like coming up, like Werewolf by Night, like all these different characters that they can use as mediums to get us to other characters. And that's kind of the beauty in Marvel is we've got all these minuscule genres, but then like every character itself can almost be his or her own genre. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't really know how to say it other than that.
Yeah, you
but-
said that perfectly. Yeah, that makes absolute sense. Yeah, you know,
Yeah.
that makes a lot of sense. Do you know what, going back to the Daredevil thing, it's going to be interesting because that's 18 episodes.
Mm-hmm.
So I like the fact that, was it you, Jarian, that said that they needed to come away from being sort of, this was ages ago, but being stuck with kind of 6 episodes of 42 minutes or whatever. It's like they can do whatever they want. They're streaming it. You can do whatever you want. Why not do whatever you want? Why not have one show that's one 45-minute episode, or have one show that's 9 23-minute episodes, or have one show that's 18 42-minute episodes? Like they can do whatever they want, like, and you mix it up, like, so you know what character not necessarily deserves, that's not the right word, but what suits the character. Does an 18 episode 45-minute show work, or does a 42-minute straight, you know, presentation work?
Mm-hmm. And I think some characters benefit from being in shows together. Like I think, like I know I made a post about Iron Fist and Luke Cage. Those two would be great in a Heroes for Hire series together, like pushing those two in a series. But then like you take those individual characters and you put them in their own shows, and I don't really think that they do as well as they would together. You know.
Yeah. They don't need a show on their own.
Yeah, exactly. So.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm trying to laugh at Iron Fist. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I know. Finn Jones.
Yeah.
Finn Jones.
Which we'll talk about that shortly. But Kevin Feige also addressed Scarlet Witch future. There really is so much more to explore. We still haven't touched on many of her core storylines from the comics. I don't know that we saw her under the rubble. I saw a tower coming down and a little red flash. I don't know what that means. So it does sound like we're going to get Scarlet Witch again at some point. Maybe the whole...
Who said that, Jarian?
Kevin Feige.
Oh, right. Okay. What do you mean?
Yeah.
What it means?
And he doesn't know what it means.
Yeah.
Right.
He's playing coy. Yeah.
This is your universe, Kevin.
So we're going to get her in, you know, that Doom connection and Doom manipulating her type thing, possibly. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
New World Order. A lot of news is that Mark Ruffalo is reportedly in talks to appear in the film, which makes sense. If this is going to be something tied to Hulks and a New World Order of featuring Hulks and what we're seeing in She-Hulk and how that's going to impact this, that makes complete sense. Anthony Mackie also talked about Chris Evans' return. He said Chris Evans is so far gone from Marvel. Like Marvel is not even in his radius. He's so far gone. He's enjoying life. He's like an old retired dude, which seems like he's saying a lot there to say he's not coming back. But are we going to get Old Man Cap or, you know, Steve Rogers or I'm sorry, Old Man Steve Rogers or just Steve Rogers as a cameo? That's seeing a lot of negatives, you know, in that sentence, you know, so I don't know.
Yeah. It'll be really interesting to see if Chris Evans or RDJ ever returns in the MCU, because I almost feel like,
Waiting to talk about Armor Wars. I have a thought about that on the Armor Wars news about RDJ.
All right, I'll hold that thought then.
Okay. But I still agree with Andy. Don't bring Chris Evans back until we get to Secret Wars and that kind of stuff, and you know, or years down the road even after that. So
Yeah. Let him train young heroes or unite people when everybody's down or something. You know, like when everybody thinks that there's no hope. Like let old Steve Rogers come back in and pump everybody up. You know.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and we don't need to do that yet. We can do that later on down the line. It's not necessary at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I wouldn't mind seeing though is that little tease that we saw in What If, or was it President Rogers?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't mind seeing that kind of thing in the MCU if you want to bring him back soon. You know, where's he been? Well, he's been on the campaign trail. That's where he's been, not on the moon. So
They do I was trying to see what that was, but Roxy just posted.
it looks like it's money.
His money, yeah, and
Yeah.
I mean that's, you know, bringing back Steve Rogers, that would make him a lot of money, I guess.
Yeah.
But I'd like to see, because at the first Young Avengers issue, when Wiccan and I'm sure it wasn't Speed. It was somebody else. It might have been Speed. I don't know. But they were going out trying to be heroes. It might have been Patriot. Yeah, it might have been Patriot. It might have been.
I think it was Patriot.
Yeah, they were trying to go out and be heroes, weren't they? And then basically Steve and Tony turned up and just went, "Stop it! Just stop being stupid," basically. And then they basically just went, "All right, fine, we'll train you then." And then they trained them, and that's what you was just saying, Alex.
Mm-hmm.
So since you mentioned Finn Jones, he did talk about Iron Fist. The second season was really all about course correction. You know, it's like, how do we just change the course and the conversation around the show and just bring it up to the place where we can feel proud of? And then we can take the show in the direction that we really want to take it. They talked about Danny Rand. He loves Danny Rand. He loves the character. He loves everything about him. He thinks it's such a joy, and so did Raven as well. And we really would just vibe out and geek out together about the prospects of what we could create with the character. Then he went on to talk about Raven especially wanted to see Danny and Ward off in a distant lands, like fighting crime and having the guns and stuff. And Orson Randall, like taking on that kind of persona. And then Colleen would be in the New York with the Iron Fist, kind of coming to terms with that responsibility. Then eventually, over the course of that season, they would find each other again and become whole. Yeah, there are a lot of interesting ways we could have moved forward with that show, which honestly, I don't want to see him back in the role. You know, Colleen, I would love to see because her fight scenes look pretty cool. And maybe take on the new Lin Lai to be Iron Fist that they have in the comics now, but I don't want to see Finn Jones back. There's been talk about him and Coulter and Heroes for Hire and that kind of stuff. I'm just like, you know what? Let's turn the page on that.
I want to see Orson Randall once. It's the dude with the guns.
Yep.
I always and they touched on, like, they kind of, I guess, highlighted something kind of similar in the show. I think it was in season 2.
Yeah, the very end.
Yeah, he like shoots the chi bullets out of the guns or whatever. That was kind of like Orson Randall. I thought that was really cool, but I think it would be cool to just to have him as like an older Iron Fist that comes in, steps in for a moment, and then goes right back out. But yeah, I don't want to see Finn Jones personally either return for the role.
He could be a cameo in the background or something.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, it's one of those things for me personally where they could almost go a completely different direction. They could even take Colleen from the Iron Fist show and just make her the Iron Fist, and I would love that. You know,
Wasn't she the Iron Fist at the end of the series when he became Orson Randall? Like, I thought.
I don't remember. I think in the second season they had that point where like everybody was an Iron Fist because it was going between like every person, and like it was like Colleen had it, Davos had it, like Danny had it for a little bit, and then he like lost. So I think he gave it to Colleen, and you know, like, so
They could make him a street vendor in the MCU selling Iron Fist memorabilia. Anyways, moving on. Andy's amused with this conversation.
I was just gonna say I can't imagine going for that one. Can you?
Yeah.
We don't actually want you back as Iron Fist, but we want you selling hot dogs. And then you can punch yourself in the face.
I love that gif of Luke Cage standing there, and it's like him saying, "But I am the immortal Iron Fist."
He's like-
and it's Luke Cage just rolling his eyes like, "Got it, kid, dude. Like, you're like a broken record." Like,
Yeah.
Thunderbolts news. Is Marvel Studios recasting General Ross? I know Andy's thoughts on this, and we'll probably hear them here in a minute, but the Anklers, Jeff Snyder claims Marvel has denied what I'm about to tell you. That's a matter of timing, is that I am too early or I am too late. Multiple sources have indicated that Harrison Ford either is or was the studio's top choice to star in Thunderbolts movie as General Ross himself. So what I initially heard is that this was a done deal for D23, that they actually wanted to announce him as a cast member in the Thunderbolts at D23, but they didn't because Kathleen Kennedy put her foot down and said, no, we're going to keep the focus on Indiana Jones 5 content. I don't want this becoming Harrison Ford joining the MCU. We're going to keep that focus on Indy 5 right now. Honestly, I don't know about this one because reports are he could barely get through the filming of Indy 5. I don't know if I could see him stepping in as General Ross in this. You know, honestly, they don't need to have General Ross come back. Off-screen transition, have Betty come back and be Red She-Hulk, have, you know, Titania, like we talked about, have Mallory, have Val. There's so many ways they could handle the Red Hulk in the MCU without having to recast General Ross.
Yeah, they don't need Harrison Ford, and we also really don't need another Indiana Jones movie, but that's besides the point. but like, you know, like they could just, like you said, off screen have Red Hulk, and that would be so easy. Just transition to it, and then we could have so many movies where everybody like argues like, oh, it's definitely Ross that's the Red Hulk or somebody else. And then it could be Ross or it could be somebody else that they just surprise us with one day and be like, yeah, this is actually who's the Red Hulk. Because you didn't know who Red Hulk was in the comics right away.
Nope, not for a while. Yep.
So
I totally agree with that. I think if they want to have a Red Hulk, just have General Ross be the Red Hulk, but just an off-screen transition. And yeah, that's fine. And then they don't need to recast him really, unless they want him as General Ross.
mhm.
What they could also do too is use Ursa Major. You know, somehow he gets the blood or the serum, and he goes from being the Bear to being Red Hulk. You know, they teased him in Black Widow. You know, they could recruit him to be Red Hulk. I'm just throwing ideas out there.
Yeah, they could do. Yeah, that's possible. Yeah, I mean, going back to what you were saying earlier, yeah, I did have some thoughts on it, and it just, for me, it was just a bit odd. Like literally, one day they said it was too early to recast Chadwick Boseman, which I'm not saying I agree or disagree. And then the next day they're going, we're going to recast William Hurt, and you were like, oh, we're going to recast General Ross, and I was like, which is it? Is it too early or is it okay? I mean, yes, okay. One was a young man and one was a relatively old man, but there's still an actor that played a character that's the actor's died and the character hasn't. So, you know, is it okay to recast or is it not okay to recast? I'm not saying it has to be a hard and fast rule, but I mean, at least if you're going to do something, you know, give it a bit more than a day before you say, yeah, we're not going to recast this guy, but we're actually going to recast this guy. You know, I just thought it was a bit odd, but which is why I kind of also don't feel like it's true.
Yeah. And I guess it can be role based too, because think about Chadwick Boseman in T'Challa, that role versus William Hurt and General Ross. I think we've only seen him a handful of times versus, you know, in smaller roles versus what T'Challa was. I don't know, but yeah, I don't think this is true. Rocky says I am, but he is too old, which I agree. So yeah.
Yeah, I like Harrison Ford, but I don't feel like, I like you, Alex. I don't feel like we need it. I think if we want General Ross, which we don't have to have General Ross, do we? I don't think he's like you was just saying there, Joe. It's not exactly like General Ross is a pivotal character. To have General Ross back makes sense to have Red Hulk in the Thunderbolts. So have Red Hulk and do what Alex said, off screen transition.
Well, and we talk about this thing like a lot in the past where we've said, you know, like use star power for less known characters and stuff like that. You don't need to bring Harrison Ford in to be the next Ross. Like there's no need, you know, like it would be one of those things where it's like, if you're going to bring Harrison Ford in, cast him as somebody else.
Yeah.
Like,
and about this, it wouldn't actually be, I don't think it would actually be disrespectful to William Hurt if they wanted to have, a transformation scene or you know scenario that they wanted to play out, that they could use CGI in that respect, in a similar way that they did with
Carrie Fisher.
Yeah, thank you. In Rogue One. So
Yeah.
they could do things like that. And they used what's his face as well, who played Tarkin in Star Wars as well. How can I forget his name? Peter Cushing.
Yeah.
They done it with Peter Cushing and they used him as well. So they could do something like that. I mean, obviously don't have him in the whole movie in that way, because that'd be weird. But certainly if they wanted to have some sort of transformation scene.
Yep. Armor Wars. So I'm excited for this one. The Hollywood Reporter has revealed that Marvel Studios is developing Armor Wars as a feature film instead of a Disney Plus series. Both Lester and Cheetah remain on the project, on board for the project. The project is being redeveloped into a feature film, which is more than likely why Armor Wars still lacked a release window during the D23 presentation. The decision was made as Marvel felt the best way to tell the story was through a feature film rather than a television series. Production on the 6-episode series was expected to begin early next year, 2023. However, crew members were said to be notified to, when this news came out, they're no longer happening. This is interesting because the next piece of news we're going to talk about is their Disney Plus strategy. But before we do, now that it's becoming a feature film, could we see RDJ returning in this film in some capacity? Because there's been some buzz when this was announced. Also, too, could this be replacing Blade on the slate for now because of the issues with the director and the script also? Now, if they did have RDJ come back, my thought was an AI for Rhodey.
Mm-hmm. That would be perfect, and it would be like also so great after Endgame where we saw like the little hologram that we saw. And you could have like Rhodey stand there and talk to AI Tony and walk through like situations like, what should I do in this situation? Like how should I handle this? And that can also kind of be like Rhodey's little way of being like, talking to Tony because he's picking up from the journey where Tony left off, like trying to continue where he left.
What program or movie is it where they're talking to an AI, like a hologram, and then the hologram says, "I've only," like they ask him too many questions, and then the hologram sort of says, "No, I haven't got that in my memory or something."
Was it Superman?
Yeah, was it
Jor-El?
Yeah. Was it Superman, Alex? When he's talking to him in the and he says, "I haven't got that answer" or something. Or
I think when he's talking to Lois Lane, I think possibly.
Yeah, something. Anyway,
yeah.
Along that lines, I like the idea that he's an AI in his ear, but I like the idea that he's a hologram, like a hologram friend, but that's only got a limited number of responses that he can sort of interact with Rhodey with. Do you know what I mean? It's almost like a recording of Tony Stark rather than an AI. So like Rhodey's kind of trying to get the answers from Tony, and Tony's like, "Look, I can't actually answer that question because I'm dead," or something like that.
I would almost assume after what we saw with Spider-Man with the Edith thing and the second Spider-Man movie that it would almost be one of those things where Tony's probably got all kinds of different little things put in place for different people. And I would probably assume that he's probably got something like that for Rhodey because Rhodey and him were like best buddies.
Mm-hmm.
They were like, he loved Rhodey, like, and like you never saw Tony show even probably like a quarter of the amount of emotion until when he saw Rhodey fall in Civil War and he lost it. And that was when he was really upset. And I honestly think that's part of why he went in against Bucky and Cap with a vengeance is because he was a little bit pissed with how it had just gone prior, and what had happened to Rhodey. So,
Also, just thinking about AI, actually going back on that, we've already seen a really sophisticated AI in Arnim Zola.
Yep.
He uploaded himself in like the 70s or whatever it was and managed to stay alive all that time. So why couldn't Tony do it? I like that idea. However, I've also got a feeling that this project is going to change drastically. I don't even think it's going to be called Armor Wars by the time it comes out. I reckon they'll change the name of it.
You think so?
Yeah, I just think the whole feel of this is just going to completely change from what it was meant to be.
What if they like swerve us and they do this thing where like he's working with an AI Tony, and then at the end of Armor Wars he discovers it's actually Ultron pretending to be like an AI Tony?
I would love that. I would love that.
And like it's like one of those things where it's like he just like completely the script just gets flipped. And you're just like, oh, like Ultron's still around? Like what? And we've seen Ultron in the background on stuff. So
the thing is, though, with them flipping the script on this one or changing it from Armor Wars, all the reports are from Secret Invasion is supposed to lead into this film.
Well, that's
yeah,
that's exactly my point. So it doesn't really relate, does it? Like what we thought Armor Wars was going to be about, which was people getting hold of Stark Tech and then having a fight over who owns it or whatever. Does that fit into what we've seen from Secret Invasion? I'm not sure. I don't feel like it does.
It depends on what tech gets out there, because remember Stark had that tech where he could identify scrolls, and maybe with them infiltrating different parts of the government, maybe even Stark Industries, damage control. Maybe they have access to tech that's got out there that, because of what happened in Secret Invasion, that's when Rhodey is set to say, hey, we need to get all this back. Maybe even Rhodey himself is a Skrull in Secret Invasion, and that's how some of the tech gets out also. And, once they get the real Rhodey back, he has to go and right the wrongs that happened because of that. So that's where I could see that script going.
That's where I can see it going down the lines of Rhodey being a Skrull.
Mm-hmm.
One of those blind Skrulls who doesn't realize he's a Skrull, and then he finds out that he's a Skrull, and then he questions everything about his own life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, they could also go the route too, where basically at the end of, I guess, Secret Invasion, the world's in utter chaos and everybody's in like this arms race to build like weapons of destruction to try and like fight against the next incoming threat. Like we've had Thanos, we were invaded secretly by Skrulls, like we need armies, we need weapons, we need everything, and everybody's just building up and going nuts. And Rhodey's like, all right, now I've got all these countries with all these new weapons and things that I have to worry about now. So, like,
Hammer Industry's still 20 years behind. No.
yeah.
Still breaking.
Yeah.
Yeah,
remember too, also Age of Ultron, Ultron was originally a suit of armor around the world. So, they had other people trying to make Iron Man suits and Iron Man 2.
Mm-hmm.
And so, there's looking stuff out there. Plus, with the whole Madripoor and the Power Broker and all that kind of stuff. There's all kinds of ways they could do that.
Mm-hmm.
The last piece of news is that Don Cheadle will be the oldest MCU movie lead to date at 57 years old.
Wow.
Top billing, so oldest. And doesn't look like it either.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say he looks maybe like early 40s at most. I would give Don Cheadle.
But then Samuel Jackson's like 70, isn't he?
Yeah, he's up there.
Yeah, I'm sure he's 70. I'm going to find out how old he is.
Have you guys seen that clip of Don Cheadle and Kevin Hart when he talks about his age, and Kevin Hart how he reacts to that, and then how Don Cheadle reacts? I posted the video on the page because when I saw that, I immediately thought of that video, and that cracks me up when those two do that.
He's 73. Samuel Jackson is 73. He's 73 years old. You wait until you see him in Secret Invasion. You'll be like, there's no way that dude's 3 years old doing what he's doing.
Well, look at the one dude in She-Hulk. He's over 100 years old. The magician guy episode. So,
yep.
Okay. So we mentioned this before. So Armor Wars is going from Disney Plus to a movie. We mentioned special presentation. So here comes this portion of it. So is Marvel changing the Disney Plus strategy? According to the Covenant Circus, Marvel Studios plans to expand its use of special presentation format with more titles that aren't necessarily tied to holidays. They will instead be used to expand the MCU in a way that doesn't involve the longer form arc of Disney Plus show. Additionally, this will be a way for Marvel to introduce new characters into the MCU that wouldn't necessarily lead their own movies, but would still benefit from a shorter story. The outlet also reports that according to its sources, Marvel and Disney Plus are considering scrapping their show plans for some upcoming Disney Plus series that are still early in development in order to redevelop them into a special presentation. It's unclear at this point which of the Marvel Disney Plus products could be translated into this format. And that's interesting because, are they going to do different lengths of presentations? 45 minutes is a big change from 6+ episodes, right? Because usually those episodes are 30 to 45 minutes in length. So going from, several hours of content to develop a character to going down to 45 minutes is going to be a huge change. So I hope this varies by character and by the story, and they don't do that same thing of putting themselves in a box for the story before the story is even written.
Mm-hmm. It's a big deal on pacing. I feel like is the big focus here, and with different characters, the pacing is going to require different things. I mean, you're going to have to flush some characters out. You're going to, not really need to for some. So it'll be really interesting to see how they choose to do that.
I think looking at some of the rumored shows that they've got coming up, wasn't there one rumored about the Dora Milaje or
there's
two
Wakanda series?
Yeah,
different Wakanda series.
So whoever it is, we've probably already been introduced to them at some point. So it doesn't necessarily need to be an introduction to that character. It's just furthering their story. It's like a mini movie. If I'm totally honest, I don't want to see a 6 episode story arc about Okoye. If I'm honest, I really don't need that. But me personally, I really don't need that. However, I'd love to watch a 1 45-minute mini movie about her. I think that'd be wicked. In the same way, wasn't there one about a whole Shang-Chi's sister? Didn't they say that there was going to be
The Ten Rings.
Yeah.
was there going to be a show about that? And again, do we want to see a show about that? Or could we do a 50-minute mini movie about it? That'd be cool. I could do that.
These special presentations are almost like little one shots that they do, like almost like I don't know if you remember the 2-3 minute one shots that they used to do a lot of. That's what I kind of feel like this is like a larger version of. It's like the movie version of the one shot, you know?
Yeah.
100%. That's quality. That's brilliant, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think it works. I mean, like, you know, we have one shots in comics where it's like, hey, we tell one story, we get it done, boom, we're done. Like, you don't need to know what happened before, you don't need to know what happens 10 years after. Like, it's pretty self-contained, you know? Like,
I also wondered too if this will spread to Star Wars also. If they change this for Marvel Studios, will this impact Star Wars also? Because, you know, we have these series of Star Wars coming out, and are they going to do the similar thing with that?
If it works for Marvel, then yes. Like, it's almost like they could test things out on Marvel and then go, well, if not even test it, but it's not probably not going to fail, is it? Which I guess does make it a test.
I also wondered too if the whole VFX stuff is causing this also. They had with some of the VFX stuff, because, you know, that does take a lot of time, and if you go from 6 to 9 episodes down to 45 to 90 minutes, that cuts down a lot on your VFX pipeline and the stress on that industry as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Roxy, who's now on YouTube, says maybe we will get the 10 Ring with Wonder Man. So there you go. Wonder Man was another one they talked about. There was 2 Wakanda Forever or Wakanda series. There's Ironheart coming up.
Somebody brought up the other day, I can't remember who it was that said it, and they said that about they're using some of the C and D list characters in She-Hulk, which we'll talk about in a moment. And then somebody turned around and said, C and D, you mean more like sort of G and H level characters? They bring it up in that episode, and I think most people who have watched She-Hulk episode 7 will know what we're talking about. But yeah, so for characters like Wonder Man, he's probably is a C, D level character, really. I mean, you can't call him a B level character, that's for certain. You know, C might be fortunate to call him a C level character, but so in that instance, do we want or need a 6 episode show about him over the course of 45 minutes?
Which it's funny, he was in that like MODOK show, and I saw Wonder Man in that show, and I was like, oh man, like I thought he would be too big for this, but all right. Like I didn't really imagine, like I thought that the whole MODOK show would be kind of just like them just kind of ripping and making bad jokes and stuff like that. And I didn't picture to see Wonder Man in there, and I was like, huh, interesting when I watched that show. So, and it was more of like a joke for multiple episodes, you know, but yeah.
And speaking of that, they could also do like a 45-minute special presentation on the leader. Where has he been till now? Intelligentsia. They could do all kinds of things with these and not limit themselves to, you know, these lengthy shows. So there's bonuses, or there's pros and cons on both sides of this and what they can do. Hopefully they don't shorten Loki. You know, I think Loki's going to need more than,
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. There was a post today, funnily enough, I think it was from Roxy. I think she put on there about your 5 most anticipated movies. And I was like, I'm anticipating a lot of, you know, I'm looking forward to a lot of movies, but actually I'm really looking forward to Secret Invasion, as you guys know, but I'm also really looking forward to Loki season 2. I think that's going to be really, really cool. So I really hope they don't shorten that one. I don't think they will, because it's all they said about
it's already in production.
That's recording now, isn't it? It's filming now.
And I kind of feel like Loki's going to end up being one of the more important projects, I feel like, kind of tied to everything, you know, so it's kind of one of those things. I feel like Loki's probably going to end up probably almost exactly the same as it started for season 2, once everything comes out, you know, hopefully.
And good point here from Roxy, you know, Nova is rumored, you know, Nova becoming Nova, you know, and that transition from Xander to Nova, that could be a 45-minute special as well, instead of having a whole series about him. Now, if they do like a Young Avengers, you know, type thing, I want to see that as a series versus a special presentation. So yeah. And then she goes, did you guys see the Loki 2 trailer leak? I have not seen that. I did see the Quantumania one, which that was interesting. but not Loki season 2.
Yeah, no, I'll wait for the official ones.
Speaking of Loki, we have some Secret Wars news. Michael Waldron will write Secret Wars. So they got the writer. There's rumor for directors.
Cool.
So yeah, now they have the writers.
Cool.
Awesome.
Mutants. Reportedly, the rumor about Kevin Feige not being able to recast certain mutants until 2025 was false.
So there's a rumor that the rumor was false.
Yes. So who knows? I guess we'll find out with the next piece of news. Deadpool 3. So Ryan Reynolds did make an announcement that Hugh Jackman will return as Wolverine for the project. And the project will release on September 6, 2024. So will be interesting to see how they tell this story. Is it, going to be along the lines of Deadpool kills the Fox universe? And he comes across a cameo with Wolverine, Hugh Jackman? Or are they going to go on a road trip together? Because everyone keeps saying, well, he died in Logan. It's like, well, Logan's in the future, though. So if they're doing current timeline, he can still be alive out there between what we saw him in the last Wolverine film, or I'm sorry, Days of Future Past. Yeah. Versus Logan, they could do some kind of road trip thing together, whatever. So
it just doesn't really matter that he died in Logan, does it?
No,
it's really not relevant. It's like we've opened up the multiverse, for God's sake. It doesn't matter where he comes from. He can come from a million different places. So
Yep.
Logan's great. We all love Logan.
Mhm.
That's and exactly like they said. Let's leave that over there. It doesn't. Let's talk about this.
And they should totally keep like Hugh Jackman around until like Secret Wars, like all that, just like let him just kind of like be there. And I'm telling you, like the only way they could top the death in Logan would be to have him be killed by Kang. And that would be awesome to see done on screen. Like, I think that would be one of those things everybody's jaw would drop if Hugh Jackman was like first blood for Kang against everybody,
Also, Hugh Jackman has started training for the role already. And that he was asked about how they convinced him to come back. Basically, he says, come on, I make my own decisions. He wanted to express that everything is all good and that he's excited, while also mimicking the Wolverine signature claws. That's interesting. Rob Liefeld, on one thing he told Disney to put in Deadpool 3. So he's the creator of Deadpool. So I had a meeting with Disney and they're picking my brain about what I wanted. And Brandon, I'm so happy that I have to email because I followed it up saying, I'm going to put this in writing. And in the meeting, I said, look, what everybody wants is Hugh, Wolverine, Ryan, Deadpool. That's it. I said, this can be as big as Endgame. I just went there because why not? Why not just go big, right? And everyone wants that, right? That we've always seen the back and forth between Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman and all that kind of stuff. And I think those two together on a screen, hopefully not just for a cameo, but for a full-length movie of those two. Maybe, we get a proper X-Force film, even.
Yeah.
And everyone dies for those two,
Yeah.
But was that Rob Liefeld trying to take credit for this?
Maybe. Sounds like it.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
That's exactly
Yeah.
what.
Yeah.
I think I've said it on the group a couple of times. I'd really like to see like some sort of universal, multiversal road trip where they go around. Deadpool's going around to different universes, trying to save people from incursions. Maybe he saves Wolverine first, and then everybody in that universe dies, and then they keep going to different universes, and everyone ends up either dying because of an incursion, or dying because they kill them, or dying because some sort of accident, and then they end up with just either almost like a little bit like Bill and Ted, when Bill and Ted go back in time and pull back all these different like Socrates or Socrates, and all these different people like Napoleon, and bring them all back, and then they've got like this weird selection of non-MCU Marvel characters from the last 20 years that they take into Secret Wars, and then in the end they all die. And
It could be X-Force. They could build their X-Force that way.
Yeah, they could.
So,
I mean, we could get some random people turn up, couldn't we? We could get, I don't know, we could get Doug Jones turn up as Silver Surfer, and we could get, David Hasselhoff turn up as Nick Fury or whatever. I don't know, just some really weird, strange sort of people that that have been forgotten about over the last sort of 30 years just show up for Secret Invasion.
Mm-hmm.
From the chat, Roxy says he had a beautiful death in Logan, which I agree. That was actually on earlier today as well. It was in the background as I was working. I totally agree with that one. Any other thoughts on Deadpool 3 and Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman? And
What do we think about the costume?
I don't think we'll get the iconic costume. I think we'll probably get a different one, like the dark costume or something we've seen him in. I don't think we're gonna get the iconic one. I could see him doing like a joke saying, they bring him the case and they pop it open. He's like, I'm not wearing that. Or he's trying to put it on. He's like, the thing doesn't fit. And kind of this, it's like a throwaway type thing. And they say that for the next Wolverine.
Yeah, I'm not wearing anything yellow. Yeah.
Yeah, he picks up the mask and looks through it, and he's like, "Are you kidding me?" And puts it right back down. Type of thing.
Yeah, he holds it up to his face. He's like, "How am I supposed to see through this?" And just throws it away onto it. Yeah, but this is really impractical. With yeah, that'd be cool. But I love the way that Ryan Reynolds announced it. I thought that was absolutely brilliant. I thought that was so class. It's just totally unannounced. Releasing a video, and yeah.
I mean, let's be honest. We're pretty sure at this point that Ryan Reynolds is the one that released the original Deadpool stuff. I mean, like, if it wasn't him, it was somebody close to him, because when he couldn't get Deadpool out originally, it made it to the internet, and then the internet blew up and everybody loved it, and that's why we got Deadpool today.
Mhm.
So anytime Ryan Reynolds wants to do that with any of the stuff Deadpool related, just go ahead and do it, just go ahead.
Yeah, we're ready
not?
for it. Yeah,
Yeah.
ready for it. Yeah, no. So I think that wraps that one up there, Joan. Is that the end of the news?
Yep, I said the best for last.
Oh yeah. So yeah, that was the best till last. Yeah, it's interesting where that falls as well. Obviously, it falls as the movie that precedes Fantastic Four.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So not far off of Secret Wars.
And that's another big project too. Fantastic Four, one that we're all anticipating.
Yep. Now they have a writer and they have a director. Now we should hopefully start seeing some cast stuff trickle out. What rumors are true, what rumors are not true. Is it totally out of left field?
Although they do. Sorry, Alex, go on.
I was going to say, hopefully here's some different stories compared to the last handful of movies that we've seen,
Like Namor and Sue.
Yeah.
Although before they do anything, they need to release a Quantum Mania trailer.
Yeah.
It's just going to get ruined eventually. Like, there's so many leaks that are out there at the moment. Some that I don't know whether are true, some that whether that they are, and all around the trailer. And I think that the sort of that sort of not shock factor, but that special moment where you see a trailer for the first time is going to get ruined if they don't hurry up and release this trailer that everybody else in the world seems to have seen.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't be surprised if we get it with Wakanda Forever.
Yeah, they haven't done that for ages though. I can't remember the last time they released a trailer with a movie.
No Way Home.
Really?
Remember the end credits was the mom trailer?
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes, it was, wasn't it? Actually,
Yep.
Yes, you're right. It was. Yeah, so that was. Yeah, that wasn't that long ago, was it? Actually, that was only last year. Yeah,
It feels like a long time ago.
it does. Not much has happened since then. We've had Moon Knight, we've had Miss Marvel, we've had She-Hulk, which we're going to talk about in a minute, and other movies. So yeah, a lot has happened. You look like you was going to say something there, Jaron.
No, no,
Okay.
I'm sorry. It's been a long couple days for me. Sorry.
Okay, fair enough. You blanked out. So yeah, and so that leads us on nicely. Like we said, we have had She-Hulk in the last few months, and we're on to episode 7. So we had episode 7 last week of She-Hulk. Do you know what? For me, it was I was a little bit worried because the first sort of 5 minutes bored me a little bit, and it reminded me of that episode 4, which was the one that I said that I didn't like, and I was like, oh, don't go this way again. I didn't really. It was just sort of. I just got into it and I was just starting to enjoy it. And then I kind of felt like episode 4 again. And then she got into the room with all of those other guys. And I was like, this is brilliant. And I absolutely loved the rest of it. So the last sort of 20 minutes of it, I thought was excellent.
Yeah,
And-
I thought. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, and talk about C and D list characters, and
Yeah,
E and H list characters,
But
Yeah, I thought it was pretty funny the rapport between Man Bull and El Aguila, because especially with him saying that he's a bull and then him possibly being a matador at some time and all that kind of stuff. And we get another mutant because El Aguila is a mutant. So and then Man Bull, is he a mutant or not? I know he's an experiment gone wrong, but I can't remember if he's a mutant or not.
I don't think he is. But
no,
Okay. but he's a Daredevil villain. Man-Bull is so. And then I believe El Aguila is from Hawkeye.
Mhm.
So Hawkeye comics.
I remember Saracen.
Mhm.
And I do remember seeing Man-Bull or El Aguila ever. I remember Saracen, I remember seeing him, and I do remember seeing Porcupine as well. And I think I can't remember where Porcupine come from. One of those stupid joke panels. That it's like, oh yeah, look, they've got these guys, and there's like just a random bunch of guys, and there's like Porcupine in the background or something. I'm sure I remember that.
He's Ant-Man. He's an Ant-Man character.
Ant-Man, right?
Because the actual QR code is for Tales to Astonish 48, Ant-Man and the Wasp Battle Porcupine for the
Right.
episode. So
Okay. Yeah. So I don't. But yeah, like you say, Alex, H-list characters.
Yeah, I mean, like Porcupine's got like this battle suit or whatever that shoots quills or whatever in the
Yep.
comics or something. He's like a weapons developer or something like that, you know, at one time.
yeah, he was supposed to build a suit for the government, but decided to keep it for himself.
Yeah. So
Okay. Yeah. But do you know what? I thought they were. At first, I thought I was going to dislike them when she first walked into. I thought, oh god, here we go, you know. And I didn't like Man-Bull and El Aguila when they first came on scene in that first 5 minutes. But in that room, I thought that was brilliant. I thought the dynamic was great between all the characters. I thought the dialogue was really sharp. I really enjoyed the dialogue. Like I thought it was funny, and then I thought it was emotional as well. Obviously, when they got her to sort of, you know,
Open up and accept. Yeah.
yeah, I thought that was good, and I thought there was also this sort of little sinister twist that I was sitting there thinking, are they going to jump her in a minute and like try and attack her? And they didn't, and I was like, oh, like it felt like they did. And with the unmasking of Porcupine, I thought for a moment I thought it was going to be Josh behind the mask, you know, and he's been sitting in there the whole time, and he's in with it, and you know, then Tim Roth was going to turn into Abomination and try and take her down or something. So yeah, I thought it was really excellent. It was an excellent sort of 20 minutes of that episode. I really enjoyed it.
I think another little interesting part too was the fact that Blonsky's leading that, right? And he's leading all of these like reject characters almost. And he's like trying to help them work through their issues. And I'm sitting there, I'm like watching, I'm like, man, not one of these guys like in a group together or just all by themselves would stand a chance against Blonsky, you know, like he's kind of like their how do I put this? Like he keeps them in line, but like if they all step out of line, it's one of those things where he'd be like, you know, you don't want me turning into Abomination because like, you know, I'll keep you all in line. But he's literally letting them fight on his property. He's literally let them like, you know, just get their squabbles out and all this kind of stuff. It's a very interesting, funny little thing. And it almost felt like it has that like cult kind of feeling to it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
it's almost like, you know, he's like almost luring these people in and like putting them underneath his wing and pulling them close. And it's almost like a lot of what they do are jokes. Like he was like, oh, he thinks he's a vampire. He thinks he's a vampire, you know?
And it's,
But good.
no, I'm saying it's funny because he's not a vampire. He's actually a Punisher villain who's an assassin and a mercenary. So it's interesting how if they're gonna pull that thread anywhere, ties the blade or anything like that because he thinks he's a vampire, or it's just one of those throwaway things.
I think that was an intentional little sort of, we'll throw him in there to just hint at vampires again.
Mm-hmm.
Just to,
Yeah.
it's like that, you know, when they have to, like trying to convince somebody that they're going to get hypnotized, and like for the days leading up to it, they kind of drop little hints all over the place that this thing is going to happen, so that they, it's like to make them more susceptible to it. And it's almost like that's what Marvel's doing with us. Like they dropped us that little hint in Loki about vampires. Obviously we've got Werewolf by Night coming up, and then we've got, you know, Saracen who thinks he's a vampire, and you know, he's all these little sort of that these things are going to happen, these monster type things are going to come, you know.
Mhm. And not only that, but he was the one who made a comment about her blood.
Blood,
Yep.
Yeah.
we're all sitting there going, come on, get it. And she's going, oh yeah, fun, yeah.
And also we got another hint at the wrecker, you know, from the wrecking crew.
I don't
But
think no.
Yeah.
I don't think that was the wrecker. I don't think that was, what's his name? Dirk, isn't it? Dirk?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't remember what his actual name is, but I don't think that was the actual wrecker. I think he just had the crowbar, and I think they'll get another wrecker that will come in.
like the
Yeah.
proper wrecking crew.
Yes, yeah.
Mhm.
I would hope so. And we still haven't seen that scene with Blonsky turning into Abomination at that like retreat
Yeah.
place.
No, or Frogman.
Yep. Or Frogman. Yeah, and I wonder if we'll see Frogman when we see Daredevil. I wonder if we'll see him as part of that episode. Yeah, but the whole Blonsky thing's interesting because this time his inhibitor failed because of the electric fence.
Mhm.
And it's funny that his PO was really not wanting to go out there. But yeah, so I wonder what happens. Does it fail again? Does he take it off? You know, because that scene shows him walking kind of in the retreat area as Abomination.
Mhm.
So interesting what happens there, how it malfunctions.
So what are the chances that he's in a place where there's no cell signal? Isn't that just weird? Isn't it like also kind of a little bit strange that, you know, like the inhibitor quits working, nobody has a clue why, and they have to send somebody up there and they get there and they're like, oh, well, he's not Abomination, so I guess he hasn't turned into Abomination. Like he could have turned into Abomination and just turned back human. And then they show up and he's like, oh yeah, like it was an accident. I think he makes the joke that he tripped it when he went over the fence line for his chicken or
Yep.
something like that. You know, like, so he could very well still be turning into Abomination. I almost feel like these guys are like his guys to hide behind. And even the card and everything, like you see him at the end of the episode, he's like, make sure that you make sure that the parole board knows that when we say the gang, we don't mean the gang, you know, and he's like trying to like almost like still sell his case that he's like reformed, you know?
I almost wonder if that scene as Abomination will be a fourth wall break in another episode of what actually happened during the inhibitor malfunction by Jen.
Mm.
Instead of having to do anything with the plot line or anything, if it'll just be like a fourth wall break about his inhibitor and that kind of stuff, unless, you know, he has tied to something more sinister and he's just playing the good guy for now. But yeah. Another thing too is that we did have an Easter egg for the sensational She-Hulk writer Dan Slott, because the tow truck was Slott towing, and the tow truck driver's name was Dan. So
Cool.
I thought that was interesting that Dan Slott reference who wrote the sensational She-Hulk comics.
Yeah, that's
very
fun.
cool.
Yeah, that was a good spot. That's a good spot. Going back to the Frogman thing, I'm wondering whether because can you hear that?
It's fine.
No, but can you hear that?
Yeah.
That's my dog howling.
Oh, I thought it was one of your sons playing video games.
That's my dog howling. Oh, sorry. I lost my track from that. So I wonder whether we're going to get Frog. We're going to get loads of characters all in one episode, and Jen's going to sort of turn around to us and go, "And you thought like the cameos were finished, sort of thing." And then there's like all of these different people that have just turned up. You know, it's like we're making up for the last few episodes where we haven't had any cameos, sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
That's a good idea, because I wonder how he's going to fit in. He's going to be another one of those cases that she has to defend, you know, because we kind of got a tease to him and when she got the costume when they visited Pug.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah,
And
we've only got 2 episodes left, haven't we?
And
Yeah.
wasn't his father a criminal? I know that like I always get it backwards. There's like Leapfrog and Frogman, right?
yep, and I think they're kind of like a combination in She-Hulk.
Okay, and I was gonna say I think Leapfrog was the villain, and then he like the son took the mantle and then became like, you know, like a hero sort of kind of, but not really, you know, like tried to be. I could be very wrong on that, but it's I'm really curious to see what they do with this, because it almost seems like he has no superhuman abilities in the show. I mean, that scene that they've shown where it's like him blasting up that picture or whatever, it almost looks like he's using like, you know, some sort of propulsion technology or something like
Yeah.
that. So, you know, maybe he's another person with a weaponized suit like Porcupine or something, you know?
And obviously we got Josh getting her blood.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I wonder how they're going to explain that, because yeah, she was in human form, but she's not going to know someone getting her blood. You know, did he drug her maybe when she was in human form? 'Cause remember, she can get pretty drunk when she's in regular form.
Mhm.
And so I wonder, did he drug her with something possibly, or what? I'm interested to see how they kind of explain that and not just have it be like something that they don't explain, because it's going to be interesting about her getting his blood without her knowing.
Mhm. I was not expecting that reveal of him being Hulk King and stuff at the end. I know everybody like watched this episode and was like, "Oh, I knew it," but I was totally expecting him to be kidnapped by like Titania and held hostage or something like that, and then that would be like where the big buildup was kind of going, type of thing. But
I did.
Yeah, I think.
Go
Go ahead.
I kind of. It was too good to be true. He was too good to be true from the beginning for me.
yeah,
Yeah, same. Something didn't seem right with him and the way he was so interested in her when no one else in the series has not been interested in Jen, but interested more in She-Hulk. So that kind of threw up red flags, but I didn't expect him to be like, Hulk King, or maybe he's just using that tagline for now, but he was communicating with somebody about that he got the blood. So who's he working for? Most likely is it the leader, is it somebody else? Is it Abomination? Who's he
Power
working
broker.
for? Power broker? Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's put it this way: a lot's going to happen in these last 2 episodes, or well, a lot should happen in these last 2 episodes. It'd be funny to see how much does. I wonder if we're just going to get totally punked, and it's just going to be just comedy for the last 2 episodes, and we're going to get nothing basically.
Into like a closing credit scene in the last episode of,
We're sort of going, what's going on?
And is Bruce going to show back up at all? Do we going to, she's called him a couple times and, we haven't seen him since the third episode of him going off to Sakaar. So I don't know.
We just need that scene of him fighting on Sakaar, just on the phone, just like holding off somebody, like, hang on, let me call you back in a little bit, like that would be so funny.
Yeah, I'm a bit busy right now. At the moment, yeah. But 2 episodes left. It's gonna be fun to see if they even try and tie this up.
Or is it going to bleed into New World Order?
I think it definitely will bleed into New World Order. I think we can assure that one.
I was just gonna say, I almost feel like this show doesn't have to end on like anything like groundbreaking, really. Like it just has to end, and they can go 100 different ways with it just from it just ending. So it'll be really interesting to see.
Great.
As long as we see like like in the end of what was it, one of the Thor movies, when we saw Selvig in Fury with the Tesseract. As long as we get a scene similar to that with like her blood and the leader and whoever's been working for him, and that could just be like a throwaway, but that could be closing credits that kind of leads into New World Order. As long as we get something like that, I don't really, I'm enjoying the show. They don't have to do anything groundbreaking in the next 2 episodes. Just keep the same tone and keep rolling on.
Yeah.
They should do a scene like where they brought, what was it, the Aether to the Collector. I think that was like a post-credit scene or something like that.
Dark World.
It's in Dark.
Yep. Yeah, and they should do something like that, but it's like somebody bringing the blood to the leader, and then we just get that very brief shot of the leader. We don't even see him, but we just hear him talk, and we know it's him, type of thing. Everybody would go nuts over that.
Yeah.
I think we might. Do you know what else I was thinking as well? Because obviously this is the Daredevil cameo hasn't happened yet. Everyone's losing their minds about it. I think it'll be really fun if when he does turn up, Jen just turns out to the camera and goes,
Are you happy? Like,
can you guys shut up now?
how good would that be?
It's totally going to be the last episode, and it has to be at this point, and it's going to be so funny too, because like that's when she can say, finally, it's the last episode now you're getting your Daredevil,
Yeah. I'll tell you what, if she could do that, if she turns around and goes, are you happy now? Like, that'd be brilliant. That'd be absolutely brilliant. Like, just be so self-aware of what's going on.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'd really like to see, actually? What I'd quite like to see, I was talking to my oldest son about South Park the other day, and I was saying about it got really, really good. Well, it's always been good, but it got really interesting around sort of season 17, 18, when they started writing week by week. They started writing the episode the week before they aired it. And I thought, how fun would it be to have a Marvel show that could do that? And it could kind of like pry on what the fans said. And if there was any show that could do it, it would be something like this, or something like a Deadpool show where there's a fourth wall break, or, something where they could like respond to the fan base the following week. How fun would that be?
And they totally should do that. They should totally have like She-Hulk address the camera at some point and somebody like Deadpool walk out and be like, I can see them too. And, like, I'm not too thrilled with how they've reacted to this or, whatever. It would be really funny. I mean, like, it'd be one of those things where it's like you take two fourth wall characters and you can put them on screen and it's almost like they're interacting with the audience at that point,
Yeah, fantastic. Talking about interacting with the audience and just changing the subject before we head this one off. Get on Netflix and watch Bandersnatch.
Oh yeah, that's a cool thing. I don't think I made it all the way through that, but where you choose like which direction you go in on the movie. Yeah.
Yeah, I've watched it. Well, I watched it once, but actually finished it 4 times.
All different outcomes.
Yeah, all different outcomes. Yeah, but I think there's about 10 different outcomes in it. But I've only gone through 4 of them at the moment. But yeah.
How long does it take?
I watched it for about 2 hours.
Wow.
Yeah. Anyway, let's before everybody gets taken away on that one. That's been a mega episode there, guys. Hour and 40 minutes. I think we better wrap this one up. We've spoken about Wakanda Forever. We've spoken about News of the Week and She-Hulk. Loads of different content in there today. So it's been a big episode. Are we all happy?
How are we going to handle next week? Because we're up by night on Friday, right?
Yeah.
And then are we gonna talk about that on Sunday in a special episode, and then do She-Hulk and news in a separate episode?
That sounds like a plan, Jarian. That sounds like an absolute plan.
You owe me a banner then.
Yeah, you'll get your banner. Right, okay, let's wrap this one up. And we'll see you lovely people next week.
Yep, Sunday, usual time. Don't forget, those of you that consume this after we go live, to like, subscribe, give us feedback, all the fun stuff. Hopefully Facebook group will be working next week. I'm not sure why it didn't pop up this week. It was scheduled to it. I'll look at that. But yeah, that's it. Obama's Day.
Yay.
Have a good one, guys.
Why don't you tell them about the time we faced